stream. Okay. Hello there. Thank you for joining us today for verbal abuse awareness. We are here with our guest, and this day we're going to talk about verbal abuse. And verbal abuse is one aspect of domestic violence. It is verbal, it's oral, it's a psychological and mental abuse, vitriolic language, behavior, the use of derogatory terms, harassing, labeling, insulting, scolding, rebuking, excessive yelling are some of the things that happen. And the aim is to kill, steal, and destroy the confidence of another person and to render them the victim to feel powerless. So it has been classified as a maladaptive behavior, which means it can be changed. When we think about verbal abuse, a lot of times we think about intimate relationships, but verbal abuse can be taught around the dinner table. So when we're around the dinner table, when we're growing up, we learn to communicate. That's what we learn to communicate. We first learn to communicate in our homes, and we learn how to communicate in our homes around the table. We talk to each other before we eat. We learn to negotiate. We learn how to give an opinion. We learn how to listen to an opinion that's different from ours. We learn how to debate effectively. And so something happens, and when this goes awry, and language is weaponized, for lack of a better word, language can become weaponized. And what happens when language becomes weaponized? It can be abusive, and it can be crippling to the person that it is directed towards. We also learn how to listen and what to listen growing up, and perpetrated. So what happens when words are weaponized in the home? Everything, we're interconnected. So, we learn things, we take it out, we teach it to others, we act out those behaviors. This is what happens when we allow this to happen. So we just want to raise awareness. We want to get some thought-provoking talk going on so that we understand what is happening when we are in a situation where this is taking place. It has become somewhat normalized in our communities, and we want to make this not a normal thing. This is not something we want to accept. We want this to be something that is not always happening, and something that we are curbing. So we have some wonderful guests with us today. I'm going to have our first guest to come on, Alicia Brown, who is an amazing young woman. She's going to introduce herself, and then she is going to talk to you a little bit about her experience in with verbal abuse, and what she thinks about her culture, her generation, and how that impacts them. So I'm going to bring her on. And if you didn't have an opportunity, go to our Facebook page or our website page, and just look at what Atia, I think her name is Atia Rogers, with the stage name Bronzy, had to say also about conversation. So that's how we kicked off our verbal abuse awareness. And now we are going to follow up with Alicia, and then we will bring on our next guest, which will be, I hope I say her name correctly, Pholile. And then we will bring Anana on, and then Dr. Anana, and then we will do all of us will discuss the rest of it. Okay, so here we are. See if I can add you to the stream. There you are. Hello. So good to see you. Could you introduce yourself, and then give us some of your thoughts on verbal abuse and your culture?
Okay, so my name is Alicia Brown, and I am a domestic violence survivor. I do feel like verbal abuse is something that is ignored because people think that when you say certain stuff, it's just that it doesn't have an emotional or mental effect on someone, like when you argue. But verbal abuse means to me like when your partner attempts to humiliate you or insult you, but they try to make it seem like a joke, like you're the sensitive one in the situation. Oh, I was just joking, I called you stupid or idiot, but I didn't mean it like that. And then you feel bad. So then you're
Mm-hmm.
made to feel guilty for everything, every argument, every disagreement that you probably didn't start, and then they make themselves the victim. So it takes your power away, because at some point you start thinking, well, maybe it was my fault,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I am too sensitive. I went through that, and there was times that I was like, well, maybe I did say the wrong thing, and that's why he did this to me, or he said that to me. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think verbal abuse is one of those things that is not highlighted as much as the actual physical abuse part of domestic
Mm-hmm.
violence.
So of course, I want to ask you this, and we talked about this a little bit before. Is a lot of times, young people will call each other out of their names, and they'll say, "Oh, that's just the way we talk to each other."
Mm-hmm.
How do you reconcile that with now they're saying the things back to you that you have always been okay with, but now you're not okay with it? What changes?
The intimacy in it, I think. Your friend and you're intimate to a certain extent. You love your friend, that's the person you go out with and you talk to, but it's not the person that you're intimately intertwined with all the time. It's not like your significant other, male or female.
Mm-hmm.
Your male partner as a woman is the person you're with every night. You're sleeping beside. You're building something with. You're cooking dinner for, washing laundry. It's a different intimacy in hearing your partner say, "Okay, Bi,"
Mm-hmm.
then your homegirl saying, "Yeah," it's a different verbiage, even though all the way around it shouldn't be used. It's just the intimacy to me. I can talk to my friend and use the female dog word, but if I'm arguing with my significant other and it gets heated and he says that, it's a different mental issue than it is from my friend.
Okay, so now and I appreciate you saying that, because with that goes, do men see, men don't think like we do. So if they hear, constantly hear, you saying these words and whatnot, and everybody's laughing, and you're in a mixed situation. Now you get into an intimate thing. Do they click over like we do? See, we click over because we're female.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We click over, and we don't recognize that men don't always click over like we do. They still stay where they are with that
Mm-hmm.
verbiage and that behavior, and we think, okay, now we got something going on. You shouldn't be talking to me like that. And you're like, always talk to you like that. So,
Right.
that's very interesting. Do you have these types of conversations within your circles, where women kind of discuss whether or not they are um, confusing their male counterparts with this kind of behavior?
Um, Somewhat. I do have a friend, and her and her boyfriend, I say, is the most beautiful toxic thing that I've ever seen. A lot of it is, and I'm gonna explain why I say that. There's a lot of love there,
Mm-hmm.
but in order for this person to respect this person, it has to be a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
You can't expect this man to respect you if you're not respecting him as well. If you're
Mm-hmm.
calling him all out his name and you get to arguing and putting hands on him, as bad as it is for a man to do, put his hands on you, that's what you've opened the door up to. It's never okay, but it's a very thin line. I don't
Yes.
talk to my significant other like that. I mean, we've had our moments where things were said, and then we come back and reel it in, like, I shouldn't have said that. In
Mm-hmm.
the heat of the moment, the point of an argument most of the time is to make the other person just as mad, hurt them just as much as you're hurt. So you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna say whatever it is to hit that nerve. And sometimes it's some of the ugliest things that later down the road you mentally can't get rid of. So I mean, I have conversations with some of my friends in the aspect of me, what I've been through, how you can get out of it, or girl, that's a red flag, girl. But not in the extent of verbiage, because I mean, people are people. I could tell a million people my story. I have had friends currently and past that were in domestic violence relationships, and I said, "Look, I went through the same thing. It's not gonna get better. This is what he did. Whoopie whoopie woo," and it went back. So even having that conversation, it's about the person, the willpower of that person. I can say whatever, but unless you really take it in, it's not going to matter to you. Some people have to go through something in a domestic violence situation that really wakes them up to be like, okay, I need to go. Because as a friend, they already think you're biased anyway. Like, oh, you're only saying that because you're my friend.
Right.
So they continue to do whatever it was that they were doing until that one traumatic moment happens. And they're like, you told me.
Yeah. So now that's awesome what you're saying, because we really do need to have these conversations with our friends, you know, about even the oral and the verbiage that we're using, the way that we're representing ourselves when we're talking. But one of the things I wanted to ask you too was, what do you think about the lyrics in rap and different things? And do you think that somehow desensitizes us to accepting verbal abuse?
I definitely do. I mean, I do think rap music does promote verbal abuse. I think it's because rap music is super influential nowadays. Rap music allows you to be and say what you want to say, and and it's not for everybody in a lot of areas, and especially with the younger crowd. It's culture, but for us, it's something that we hold dear to us. We don't like when people try to adapt that culture, and it is also relatable. So you can have your rappers that are saying this word and that word, and then your significant other come and say that word to you, and you're like, hold on. But then you also I have another situation where her boyfriend says, when he introduces her, this is my B. I'm like, what? Like, that's okay with you?
Welcome.
But I also feel like it's all about willpower. I don't feel like just because you listen to rap music, it should change certain things. Because you know, you could listen to R&B and still be the worst person in the world, or gospel music and be beating your wife or your husband behind closed doors. I think it's all about how you interpret stuff. I mean, I have a son, and even me, I you know, I grew up in a very much Christian household and family. And I still, when I got a little older, did things outside of what I knew I was supposed to do. So you are your own example. I listen to what we call secular music, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna go out here and kick a door and rob somebody or kill somebody. It's about this. It's a mental thing. If you're mentally weak enough to go out here and think because this rapper said beat your girlfriend and you go do it, that's a you thing. I don't think it's a rap music thing.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But as you were saying before, it is very influential, and our young people listen to, you know, whatever you're listening to often enough is what you're going to ingest and become. But you know, what we really want to actually hone in on, that you said, is that these words can hurt, because words, when weaponized, can become
Right.
weapons of mass destruction to a person. You can destroy your reputation. It can destroy your thought life. It can destroy your dreams and your hopes and what you think of your own self. So one of the things I often think about is sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you is not true at all.
No,
As a
they
matter of
taught us
fact,
that in
words
school,
hurt
and that
a
is not
lot worse.
true.
Exactly. So we were going to go to our global perspective now, and ask Pholile, hopefully I said that correctly, to come in and give us a global perspective of what do you think globally is happening with verbal abuse? Because as Alicia says, sometimes it's cultural. So how do we deal with that aspect of abuse? Is it the same? Is verbal abuse the same across the world? Are you
Okay,
on?
good evening.
Yes.
Yes, I'm on.
Okay.
Hello, good evening and good morning for those that are up early enough to watch this.
Yeah.
Hi, Alicia, Dr. Nana, and also
Hello.
Bonnie. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. I think it's a very important discussion to be had. With regards to verbal abuse globally, I think culturally, if you're talking about culture, we have to understand that culture is not just an indigenous people,
Mm-hmm.
or it's not just Africans wearing colorful clothes and now we identify that's a particular culture.
Mm-hmm.
Culture actually is the way that we live and build communities with one another. And I think that's why even across the globe, where there is gender inequality, you see that there's a prevalence of verbal abuse because it's normalized. If you
Mm-hmm.
see somebody as lesser than, then obviously the way that you speak to them and the way that you treat them will be affected because you're not relating with an equal. You are engaging with somebody that you believe is beneath you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first element that I would say when talking about our cultures. And then there's also the other nuances of culture in terms of areas. Like you find sometimes we have a place called Joburg. It's kind of like New York City versus a place like LA. LA, it's a lot more laid back than New York. So there's certain things that you find happening in LA or happening in New York that don't necessarily happen in LA because the cultures are different. They're laid back.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you look at nationalities, for instance, you have Spanish, you have your Caucasian, you have your Black cultures. Whereas in Black culture, if you talking, for instance, to a child and you say, hey, 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 hurry up, we gotta go out, move now. In our culture, it may not necessarily be a bad thing. You're not shouting at the child to demean or degrade them. You're just like, come on, let's go. Whereas in other cultures, they like talk, very softly and gently with the child.
Mm-hmm.
Lower yourself to the level, look them right in the eye. That's the
Mm-hmm.
best way to connect and get through to a child. So that's how I think even across many cultures, uh, it can be a little bit difficult or different when we're looking at verbal abuse. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved what Alicia was talking about when she was saying we need to look at aspects such as the emotional state of the person when we speak to them in a particular way. How are we affecting their psychological state as well? I
Mm-hmm.
love the scripture that says that the tongue holds the power of life and death.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to you, am I talking to you to build you or am I talking to you to break you? And even
Mm-hmm.
when I'm receiving whatever somebody is talking about, I need to ask myself, is this thing a positive thing? Is
Mm-hmm.
the person, if they're critiquing, are they critiquing for my improvement or are they critiquing for me to be ashamed or to lack confidence when it comes to whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is that I'm doing? So that's
Mm-hmm.
also something worth looking into as well, knowing that your words, they hold power, and not
Mm-hmm.
only looking at the word, but the intentions behind the word as well.
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's huge. The intention, because that is what verbal abuse is about. It's the intent of the person to destroy the other person, and it's not a physical destroy. It is a mental destroy, because once you have someone mentally and psychologically in your grip, you could get them to do whatever, and then they are
Yes.
weakened and they no longer believe what they should about themselves. You have now gotten them to be able to agree with you about how terrible they are. You have brought them to a place where they no longer see themselves as valuable. And so that is
Mhm.
what a verbal abuse the aim of an abuser who is verbalizing his distaste of you, or tearing you down and making you feel so horrible, is so that you do not rise up to become who you are. And that is serious. And that is where the murder comes in. So you've already murdered that person, mentally and psychologically and emotionally. And now you can do whatever you want with them. That's the way, terrorists operate. And a verbal abuser is terrorizing the victim, trying to get them to a place where they feel absolutely helpless and unable to do for themselves. So this, this conversation is so important. And we're not therapists and we're not psychologists, but we want to raise awareness and provoke dialogue about this, because we need to learn how to communicate to each other so that we're not murdering people and killing them before they can realize their dreams. So with that, we're going to call on Dr. Anana, who will introduce herself and give us her take on what she's been seeing at what she works with young girls. So go ahead, Dr. Anana.
Hi, good evening, good morning.
Good evening.
I am grateful. Thank you, Bonnie, and all the amazing speakers so far that have shared. But again, I'm Dr. Anana. I'm the founder of Blessed Girls Global and a World Civility Ambassador. And this topic is everything to me. As we continue to move forward the theme of civility, right, and upbuilding and supporting girls, women, and just those that are marginalized around the world. So verbal abuse, is such a hot topic. And I think the more I learn about it, the more I understand how far-reaching it is. As Pholile was speaking about culture, and us as a people, if we want to say women of color, right? I think that it is so much a part of our experience, right? And so just us talking about this tonight, we are disrupting the norm. This is so vital. So I just thank you, for facilitating this conversation, this dialogue that raises awareness on verbal abuse. And, just to echo it and tie this in, as you talk about culturally, it could be girls and women in India. It could be girls and women right here in Harlem, New York, right? It could be girls in South Africa, right? And women, and just to understand the impact. And the biggest thing that I really want to make sure that we hone in on that, it's any verbal interaction. Right? It doesn't have to come from a mate necessarily, right? It could be even in a family setting. It could be even at work, but anything that causes like any emotional like disruption, or it throws you off, right? And it causes you to really question who you are, right? It causes you to feel inadequate. Right? It causes you to feel stupid, to feel worthless. That's what verbal abuse is. So I think just really putting the light on it, and letting people know exactly what verbal abuse is, then we can start to really have a understanding of it, and possibly break some of the patterns and the abuse that's going on in so many areas. It's just so many things. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm jumping in. I hope how much I've missed. I'm not sure where we are with it, but that's just one thing, just to say, listen, anything that makes you feel worthless, anything that makes you feel inadequate. And so that's music. That is our culture, right? I mean, so we can't, to me, all 90% of rap music does that for women. I mean, let's just say, it's so common to be called the B, right? It's so common to be called a hoe, a whore, like that. You put on any song, and it's not just the men saying it, we saying it about ourselves and about each other. So, y'all, where are we going? Because I'm ready.
That is the perplexing part. We're bouncing to it, you're dancing to it, and I guess vibing whatever to the beat, whatever. And they are talking about you, in a way that is just so you wouldn't want your grandmother or your mother to hear, you know what I'm saying? But you are you're complicit in it because you're bouncing to it, you're accepting it. So I think that, we're not saying that get rid of rap music. We're not saying that, but we need to understand the impact.
Yes.
That's what we have to understand. We have to understand the impact of words, because as Pholile mentioned, is the power. There's power in words. Words are not, words are like stones. And like fire. You can light it. The Bible talks about you can light it from the fire of hell, or you can speak it. It can be a wonderful thing. And with the words, we take down nations with words. Words are not that insignificant. And it's not that people don't know that, but we kind of like play it down when it's convenient. Oh, it's not that bad. Come on, you all are overreacting, but we see the results of it in our relationships. And life is about relationship. We are all in relationship, we need to find ways to educate on this a little bit more, because rap music is not bad in and of itself. It's the way you are verbalizing what you're trying to say, and you're weaponizing, what you're saying. So when you do that, that's the problem, when words are used to destroy. And words can also be used to build up, and to make awesome thing. So before you came on, Dr. Anana, we were talking about the confusion that men may have.
Okay.
All right. With us hanging around with them and calling ourselves bees and, being okay with all of that. And then when we get into an intimate setting with them, now we want them to respect us and not call us that and act like that. Do guys make that shift like that? Because I don't think they do. And I think that they're getting confused. And how soon can we arrest this behavior in our young men to make sure that they understand, you know what I mean? that, this is not something that you really want to engage in.
Indeed. And, of course, that's even, what Blessed Girls is about. Really, it's about the youth, right? So if I'm not telling my son, like he puts on a song and I'm like, what did he just say? Like, do you understand what he's saying? Like, do you get that? And what is he talking about? And so like you said, even as parents, right? It's just like, whoa. Like, let's pump the brakes on that. I know, like you said, the beat is, but you know what? Do you know what he's saying and what he's saying about? Is he saying that about me as your mother? You know what I mean? As your sister, as your cousins. Like, do you get that? And that's why I feel like it's so much a part of our culture and our cultural experience, is because you know what? We starting young. It's just a beat. They dance into it, and it's just so subliminal, right? That it's huge, right? So I guess that again, we have to start young, right? Because again, it's just in the music. It's just what they're hearing. They got their ear pods on, and over again. This is what you calling a woman. You talking about the WAP. You talking what we talking about? You calling every other word. Like is that how you really feel about women? Is that how you really feel about me? And then if we can, just even again, just shine the light on it. Like, you understand what they're saying? Right? And is that how you really feel about someone that you care and you love and respect? Like even holding them accountable at a young age, to be a leader and not a follower. And again, I think just getting them to understand how far reaching it is, right? That you said the words that you say, right, and what they mean and the far-reaching effects of it, is really powerful. So, and I like it because typically when we say verbal abuse, we think about, it is calling names, right? And, shaming someone, right? But there's so much more to it.
Yes.
Even in that, the criticizing, oh, you did that wrong, or you can't do this, or, just simple things. You can't drive, you can't dance, you can't cook. I mean, whatever it is, but just thinking about, again, civility and loving, each other and uplifting each other is what I'm saying and doing. Is it building up or is it tearing down? Right? If we can get them just to even think about that in their interactions with anyone, I think we will see, a huge impact and prayerfully a shift. And
when we think of vitriolic vitriolic language, this is language that is supercharged. You ever had somebody talk to you and they talk to you so harshly that you can feel it? You can feel the hate that they have for you. This is a part of verbal abuse. This is a powerful way of throwing negativity your way. And it's not an easy thing to combat when you're in a small, intimate setting. And that's why it becomes such a negative thing. And as Alicia was saying, that it's not looked at as much as domestic abuse is violence is, like fighting and hitting, but it is violent because you can feel the violence and you already know what's coming. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Because it's almost like a prerequisite. It's coming, and it's something that is learned and practiced. You know what I'm saying? This is, we're learning this somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Children don't just grow up and become, abusers. Things happen to them in their lives and all that kind of stuff. But when we're talking and interacting with each other, as I said before, we're learning how to negotiate. We're learning how to debate. We're learning how to accept someone's opinion or not accept their opinion, and how to talk about the opinion of someone else's that's different from ours, and how to evaluate whether or not we want to receive something. We learn all that at home when we first start. So we are mothers of sons, and I know that we understand. Yes. Right? That when it comes to young men, they are different from young girls. Yes. I have 2 girls and 2 boys, and they are sure enough different. It's very different. And there's a different way that you have to communicate with a boy to make sure that he gets it, because they don't connect the dots the same way we do. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say, anything negative about boys, but they are different in the way that they think. And we have to be cognizant of that, because the bottom line is we're the first woman that they love. Yes. Okay. Are you teaching your son how to love you? And if he is learning how to love you, then how are you allowing him to talk to you? So this is why when people are posting things online and they're laughing at the little boy telling off his mom and all that, and it looks cute and we laugh at that, that's really not funny, because later on, yes, later on, it's not going to be funny. You know what I'm saying? So indeed. A lot of this is cultural. A lot of this is stuff that we just ignore and we let fly past, and we act like we don't see it, or it's funny. Sometimes it is funny. Sometimes, my little grandbaby will say something, I have to run in the other room to laugh in the bathroom because I can't let her see me laugh. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want her to do that again. You know what I'm saying? But we have to do what we got to do to make sure that we're teaching things that will save our children's lives. Okay? You want your kids to live and not die. And abusing another person will get the person dead, and it can get you dead, or it can steal your life and you'll be in jail for the rest of your life. You don't want that, and we want to learn to be civil with one another. We have to start that in the home. You know what I'm saying? Let's be civil with each other at home, and then as it spreads out, and look, be the unpopular parent. Let them be mad at you. Let them be upset. But, we can sit down and talk about these lyrics I just heard you saying. Do you understand what that means? Have those talks. Yeah. We got to have those talks, with our kids, Okay, I like that song too, but the real deal is that they're saying this and that and the other. And this is not, I don't want you to feel that way about how do you feel when you hear this? Even ask that question. How do you feel when you hear this song? What do you think of when you hear it?
Well, you know what?
So that we can kind of get in their heads. We need to understand what's going on, because we don't want to raise, people who are going to do these things. We want to raise somebody who is able to communicate properly, able to disagree agreeably.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was reading even about, verbal abuse and how far reaching it is, that it actually can affect, it inhibits your success. Mm-hmm. So, and I was like, you really think that that's what happens, right? So it affects your entire life, right? Yes. So of course your relationships, but how kids perform in school, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I don't feel inadequate, if I don't feel adequate, if I don't feel good enough, right? And then of course relationships, because if I don't feel worthy, right? But even in work, right?
Yeah.
Feel like I'm successful enough, or I'm good enough, or I should go for that promotion, or I should speak up, right? It inhibits so many things, but it all boils down to successful relationships, successful, careers, right? All of this thing. So that's why I was like, wow, verbal abuse. It is so bigger than just the romantic partner, if you will. It really can affect your entire life. And
yes.
so that's why this is again, I want the, the audience to know and understand, like, what is verbal abuse, and the like you're saying, what happens to the person receiving it, to the victim. How are they feeling when you say these things to them, and maybe not on the outside, but even internally, like, so it's like you said, not physical, not the bruises, and you might not see the blood, right? But they're bleeding on the inside, right?
That's right.
To go on as they move on. So yeah, it's just, it's socially, it's the parent and child, it's your romantic, it's your partners, it's even in your friendships. I can say, yeah, girl, that's my bae, that's my bae. Really? Like, you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm calling my friend, that's my girl. I love and respect her, and that's what I'm calling her. Okay.
Yeah. But again, we normalize it. We normalize it so that it becomes something that's, it's an endearing term. When that person is using it, it's not endearing when this person is using it. And again, that's confusing. It's confusing to people. And so we need to be a little clearer with that type of thing. I was just thinking from what you were saying, and jump in whenever you want to, Alicia and Pholile. Just jump right on in, and we'll back up. But because this is just like a great topic. But I remember when I was in that situation, and I was so beat down. Now you don't know it. This is the thing with verbal abuse, right? You get verbally abused. You go to work, right? You are injured inside, right? You are torn up inside, and you are bleeding. You're internally bleeding, but you don't know it, right? But you do recognize that there's stuff that you're not able to do as well as you were able to before. So one of my managers had called me over. She was like, I don't know what's going on, whatever, but I think you probably should take, I had like 6 weeks of vacation or something like that. You need to take at least 4 weeks and just get yourself together, because I don't know what's going on, whatever. And, I didn't feel like I was doing anything different, but I was. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because you were bleeding internally. It's like when someone gets shot. You ever seen on television when someone gets shot full of holes? They don't know they got shot. They're still walking, and then suddenly they realize that oh my God, and they're dead. That's the way it was. And it will beat you down. It will beat you down. You're torn up inside, and you can't function on a lot of levels. You don't realize it, and it begins to trickle down, just like the person who's walking. At first, they're running. Actually, the adrenaline has them running. Then you see them slowing down. Next thing you know, they're falling slowly down. Now they're down. That's the way it is. So weaponized words are more, to me, at times crucial than the actual lick, because you see it. As you were saying, Alicia, you see that blow, and you see the bruise, so you know how to take care of that. But you don't see what happened when they just tore you all to pieces with all that stuff they said to you. You don't see that, and so you don't take care of it.
Last time I said that last time, that when I was in that situation, I almost at times would have rathered him hit me than him say the things that he said, because I could heal from that bruise, the black eye, the busted lip, but them words played constantly. Even getting out of that situation, getting into a healthy situation, you become on defense. No matter, you could casually be having a conversation, a debate, I'll say. Debate is we're both sharing opinions. You're not right, I'm not right. You're not wrong, I'm not wrong. But something within that debate triggers a past, thing in you, and you immediately become on defense, where now those words hurt again. So verbal abuse is, like I said, it's just people don't give it the life that they do with those marks, because you become so normal with someone talking down to you, and they yelling at you, or you ain't doing this right, like she said at work, or it becomes so normal, you become blind. It's like you're moving, you're good, but everybody else around you sees it.
Yes.
Everybody else seen it. where I could show up with that black eye, and you knew,
That's it.
oh,
Mhm.
something's going on at home, where he could really be talking crazy to me, making me feel this big,
Mhm.
and nobody would think anything was wrong with me.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Pholile, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was actually about to say I like the common thread that I'm picking up with everyone's contribution. It's just generating an environment where there's healthy communication.
Mhm.
You can't
Mhm.
just speak anyhow.
Right.
And I think Alita had also mentioned it before, where somebody says, "Oh, I spoke something in the heat of the moment." And you
Mhm.
just develop tendencies where you blow up and you expect everybody to understand that
Mhm.
when you blow up, you tend to say certain things. It's not a healthy way to communicate. And it's also important for us to exercise some form of introspection. I mean, I'll
Mhm.
talk from my own thing. I used to have jokes that were in bad taste, and I would say, "Oh, I'm just joking about your appearance. Or I'm just joking about your intelligence," and
Mhm.
using the joke, but then the other person is being offended or the other person is being hurt by that, and that was
Mhm.
not necessarily a healthy way of communicating. And as much
Mhm.
as we may have been laughing or whatever the case may be at the time, I also needed to address that with me to say, yes, of course, joking, it's fine. To be in that environment where you're joking and all of that. But if it's getting to the point where somebody else is being hurt, if it's getting to the point where
Mhm.
someone is being genuinely put down, then you should be somebody that says, okay, I need to exercise a healthier way to communicate with the other person. And it's also in our relationship with spouses, for instance. So you have a husband that will never compliment his wife, but every time someone pops up on TV or walks by, they're like, "Oh, she looks great," or "That hairstyle today is everything." And the wife is like, "Well, excuse me, I put in so much effort, and you never say anything for me." Or,
Mhm.
for instance, it could be the way that a wife is engaging with the husband. Your husband always comes to you and says, "Hey, babe, I've got this great project. What do you think? I just want to take it off. It's my hustle." And you're like, "No, no, no, no. How many times have you done this? Nope, what we are not doing this again." But the moment there's a successful gentleman driving that expensive car, you're like, "Well, would you look at that? If somebody
Mhm.
would apply their minds, that's where they
Mhm.
could be at." So we need to look at the smaller things
Mhm.
in levels of introspect that we are doing in our own relationships, just
Mhm.
to make sure that we are as healthy as possible. Because I think it was also you, Bonnie, that mentioned it. People, they pick up on our nonverbal communication and
Mhm.
gestures as well. It's not just what we say. I cannot say, "Oh, I'm in a great marriage," or "I'm a great friend." There's nonverbal things that I have to be aware of that I am doing or other people are picking up on from the way that I carry myself. So it's also that, are we a safe space? Do I really think over what I'm about to say? And also, do I have it in me to go to somebody and say, "Hey, listen, I'm so sorry about that. I don't think it's right. I could have been very upset at the time, or I could have just taken it as a complete joke. But regardless of that, it's not right to treat somebody else like that."
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
love it. That's real talk, cause right. I'm
Mhm.
raising my hand on that one because I'm like, ooh,
Yeah.
am I being abusive in my marriage? Like, stop
Yeah, right,
let's,
right. I was getting
let's
ready
be
to say,
real,
hold
ladies.
on, wait a minute.
I was
But
like, ooh,
I do feel like what
yeah,
I went through physically
Mhm.
changed me to a point where I am blind to some of the things that I do say and how I lash out,
Mhm.
because I went from a place where I was broken. I
Mhm.
couldn't defend myself. And now I know nothing but defense. I know
Mhm.
nothing but how to,
it's good.
uh, I'm going to get you
That's
before
right.
you get
It's
me.
me.
Yes.
So it is hard sometimes to sit back and rationally think that what I'm about to say is going to hurt you, because that other part of me is like, get him
Mhm.
first, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm sitting here like, well, you know what?
and
Man,
just think
I
about
just
it.
was saying, yeah, I was just fussing at my son, and I might need to go in there and give him a hug, because I might have
Mhm.
made him feel
Come on.
less than,
That's
made
it.
Mhm.
him feel inadequate. I was mad that he couldn't get it right, and I was like, I lashed out because it does trickle. Someone did it
Mhm.
to me. I now
Good.
project it.
That's it.
I try not to,
Yeah.
but it happens. So it's
Mhm.
like, well, maybe I haven't broken the curse that I thought I did
Mhm.
because I'm portraying, maybe I'm not hitting him,
Yeah.
but now I'm verbally messing him up, you know?
And this is so important. That what you just said is so important that people get the depth of what happens, you know? This is just amazing, the depth of what happens to people when they are verbally abused, because those words go in, and as Alicia was saying, you rehearse those back. You know, you don't rehearse the bruise back. You forget about that. You go on, but you rehearse the words back. They come back at the most inopportune times, and you've got to stand them down. You know, you got to stand it down again in order for you just to do something.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I'm like, what, 20 something years out, and still standing down the devil for some stuff that was said to me. Those things will come back all the time, and so we need to be responsible in what we say. When we were growing up, they used to tell us, think twice before you speak, you know, and we need to take the time to think before we say stuff, because, you know, what we are saying could really, really kill somebody. You know, I remember not too long ago, and then you know, whoever else wants to, we have like about 20 minutes. So I'm just going to say this real quick. There was a situation that happened where a young lady was on the phone with a friend of hers who was contemplating committing suicide. It was in the news. And he kept calling her and saying he was going to do it. And she said to him, oh, well, I don't believe you, because you always say you're going to do it and you didn't do it, and blah, 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 blah. And why don't you just go ahead and do it? And he did. Mm-hmm. And they actually charged her with murder. Why?
Yeah.
Because she weaponized her words, you know? If you can't help a person, then it's best to keep your mouth shut. What did your parents used to say? If you can't say something nice, don't say something at all, anything at all. And a lot of times as women, you know, men are trying to walk away. Let them walk away.
Right.
If they're angry, let them walk away. All right? Because you do not want seeds sown into you that you have to constantly uproot and, you know, keep from taking root. You know, and keep at bay. Once you have uprooted them, here it come back again. You know, you have to constantly remind yourself of who you are. So, you know, one of the great tools that the abuser will use is the sowing of that in you, so that you do not become who you are. And you have to remember that you are who God says you are, and they don't want you to be that. Yeah. Sometimes that light is just too bright, but it will not be hidden.
Amen.
So,
Amen. Yeah, that part.
It will not be.
It's such a great discussion, because, you know, again, as even Pholile was saying, it's something that, you know, there's a time where you have to look at yourself. You know what I mean? Like Michael Jackson, I got to look at the man in the mirror, right? I got to look at the woman in the mirror, you know, and like A is to see, am I ever projecting some of these things, right? And again, it's learned behavior, right? Okay, so what did my mother and father, they only knew what they knew, right? So like you're saying, Alicia, let's break the curse, you know, of really, we do verbally abuse our children. We may be verbally abusing our spouses, right? These things, but just again, raising the awareness that this is abuse. This is a form of abuse, you know, putting people down, being negative, you know, that's what it is. So let's recognize it, right? And when you know better, you do better.
You do better.
Yes. So tonight, you know better, right? So we have to recognize that, listen, verbal abuse is not physical, but it's any interaction that causes you emotional harm or causes you to question who you are. When you feel inadequate, you know what I'm saying? You feel stupid, worthiness, that anxiety, you know that feeling? It's not a good look, right? When someone is always correcting you, always interrupting you, right? You begin to normalize that thing, but that is not normal. Guess what? It's abuse. Right? So we want to recognize it, right? And we want to say, listen, it stops now. It stops, right? You can no longer do whatever it is, right? So whatever that is, you know, putting me down, you know what I'm saying? That stops. I see it. I know what it is now, and it stops now, right?
Yes.
So and also make healthy decisions about the relationships that you are in, you know, friendships, you know, partners or whatever. Nah, you know, I might have picked that, you know how we be drawn to that one type of, you know, y'all know.
The bad boy.
That's my type. You know, I know, but listen, I'm a I know how we do, right?
Yes.
They need to stop.
Yes.
Right.
That's not really what, like you said, you're being drawn right to the same thing. So it stops now, right? So
Yes.
we want to recognize it. We want to say it stops now and make better decisions about
Yes.
the relationships that we
Absolutely.
as we move forward. And just two last things is, listen, it's not your responsibility, for the way that someone else's behaves. Like we always, oh, what did I do? Did I cause it? No, that's not how that person behaved. Is not your responsibility.
That's right.
And so you want to set boundaries. Again, that's the first time, or maybe you let it go 100 times, right? Okay, but the 101 time, it ain't happening. It's not happening now. So, and take time to heal. Like Alicia was saying, you know what? Like God, and I'm just, it's constant. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Lord, please help me. Work on me. Search my heart.
Yes.
Search my heart, God.
Heart. Yes.
Help heal me of any hurt, past things that I have been the victim or been the, the one, the perpetrator of. But God, just heal my heart, right? So those are just some of the suggestions and the tips that I hope that those that are watching take away from tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And what would you like your last takeaway to be, Alicia? And then Pholile, and then I'll close out.
I guess just stand in your power. I mean, we're all human. We all make mistakes. Like you said, if you know better, you do better, but you have to know better. So it begins now. There's no one that can say, well, I don't know. You're beginning to know. So moving forward, try to be the best you that you can be. Take that power back. I'm still taking it back. I still fall. I still slip. I still lash out. I know I have work to be done, but every day I'm 1% better and trying to figure out how to be a better person, not just for me, but for my son. I have a son by my abuser. And my biggest fear is that even though he was too young to remember it, I'm going to project my pain onto him, that he's going to adapt it elsewhere. Because I didn't grow up in an abusive home. He was too young to remember it. But if I verbally now talking about it, do him that way, it's going to project down and continue to project that I might as well stay with who I was with and let him watch me get beat on. So just own your power, own your truth, and just be 1% better every day. And just know that sometimes you're going to fall, but God is there to pick you up. And He's going to get you through.
Awesome. Pholile?
Yeah, I think I would just emphasize what I mentioned earlier about the tongue holding the power of life and death. So we always need to be aware that what we are speaking, it's either building or breaking somebody else on the other side of it. And I guess just being aware of popular culture, just because it's popular and everybody does it and it's normalized and it's accepted, it doesn't mean it's right. Popular is popular because a lot of people do it, not necessarily because it's the right thing to do. And also, like Nana and Alicia have also been saying, personally, what is my contribution to that thing? I always make a joke sometimes, and I've heard some pastors say it as well. When somebody's preaching or when somebody's giving like a good talk motivational, we always are like, oh, I need to pass this on to so-and-so. I need to pass that on to so-and-so. But sometimes it's good to have some kind of introspection, because it's always a good thing to educate yourself. It's always a good thing to improve upon an issue, even if you may not necessarily think that you do have a problem in that particular area. Introspection never does any harm, or trying to educate yourself a little bit more on the issue never does any harm. And also don't brush people off as sensitive. Maybe you've got thicker skin, as they say, but if somebody comes and says, hey, listen, I really felt like the way that you said this, or what you said, or the way that you did this, it was hurtful to me. Don't say, oh, well, you're being very sensitive today. Just relax, and don't not like that. I mean, really, but just have that compassion in your heart and say, you know what, I'm sorry. A contrite spirit, being a person who's always willing to say, I'm sorry, and approaching relationships with a contrite spirit. I think that would be a healthy approach.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I am just so blessed that you ladies came on with your perspectives. We got perspectives from all over, and it was wonderful to have this discussion, because this is just the beginning of discussion. We want people to go. I mean, even if one person has been affected, that was what it was about, So I do want to say this, like, when somebody is verbally abusing you, and you're standing there. My pastor used to say, rest in peace, he's not here with us anymore, but he used to say, you can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you don't have to stand there and let them make a nest in your hair. So move away, from the abuse. Don't listen to that, because it goes in, and then you think about it and you're hearing it twice. Then you might repeat what they said, and that's you hearing it again twice, and you're reinforcing what they've said, so you don't want to even let that in. If you can avoid being under it, move yourself away from the situation and move on. So we are just blessed today. We want to educate, provoke thought, raise awareness, and encourage civility today. If we would just be kind to one another, that would be an awesome thing. And think twice before we speak. Thank you, Pholile. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Dr. Anana. This is Bonnie Allen-Nadella signing off, and we're saying go to our Facebook, like our Facebook page. If you did not see Alicia's testimony, you can go to our Facebook page or our YouTube channel, and you can see her entire testimony there. So thank you so much, ladies. And hopefully, this gets to the right ears, and we just, look forward to doing more things together. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Amen. Blessings.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Bye.